Okay, it's 4:10. Do we have everyone on screen?
Good afternoon, everyone.
We are missing one council member. So maybe we'll just give a courtesy couple of moments for her to join us. Is it possible for someone to reach out to her and make sure that Councilmember Nastandi is not on the wrong link?
Will do.
Thank you very much. There we go. We're all here. Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We will now call to order the Thursday, September 15th, 2022 Palm Desert City Council meeting, successor agency to the Palm Desert Redevelopment Agency and Housing Authority meetings to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Present.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Nastandi.
Here.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Presente.
Mayor Harnick.
Here.
All council members are present.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll now go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Kelly will lead us in that. And then following that, we will have our inspiration by Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
And thank you for the privilege. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So someone I greatly admire once said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." That was Winston Churchill, and I think he pretty much knew what he was talking about. I'm proud that our city, and especially our staff, is never content with success, nor is it afraid of failure. We do, in fact, constantly strive to make our very special community the best that it can possibly be. This is in large measure due to the participation of our residents who step up to participate in our many committees and commissions, taking their time and giving their effort to shaping our community. Thank you to all of you, and especially to our hardworking staff for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a report out from closed session?
Yes, there is. Thank you. On the first item on the closed session agenda, the City Council unanimously approved an extension of the development and disposition agreement for the Chandi Enterprise Group. And copies of that extension will be available once it's finalized. That was the only action that was taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move to city manager comments, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have two items tonight. First, I'd like to welcome Andy Ramirez, our Deputy Director of Public Works, who is going to provide the council community a brief overview of some of the street maintenance activities our Public Works Department is taking on. And I'll turn it over to Andy.
Thanks, Todd. Pleasure to be with you. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, Andy Ramirez, Deputy Director of Public Works. I just would like to share with you an overview of how Public Works maintains the city's street infrastructure through capital improvement projects and ongoing maintenance activities. And so I'm going to go ahead and open up my PowerPoint here and click on there. Our public street network consists of nearly 173 centerline miles and a surface area of about 42+ million square feet of asphalt. It's pretty substantial. We have a city that's continuing to grow, and that kind of gives you a little indication of how much asphalt is out there on our streets. To maintain our extensive street system, Public Works conducts citywide inspections through staff and our consultant to rate the condition of the street pavement known as the PCI, or the Pavement Condition Index. This is a numerical index. It ranges from 0 to 100. 100 indicates pretty much a brand new asphalt with no issues, and a score of 40 represents a very poor condition. In the city of Palm Desert, our citywide goal is to maintain a standard rating of 80 PCI, which is a very good pavement condition. Our present PCI is 77, which still falls within the very good range. On this next slide, in order to maintain a high PSI, Public Works follows a 5-year CIP pavement management program to proactively address maintenance and rehab or rehabilitation needs. We do this years prior to streets coming to end of life cycles. As such, we adhere to more of a pavement preservation method versus being reactive consistently and constantly to maintenance needs. This slide demonstrates the importance of maintaining a high PCI and how early preservation is key to extending the life of city streets. One of the primary tools for pavement preservation is slurry sealing streets. Slurry seal is basically a cold mix coating consisting of fine crushed aggregate, emulsified asphalt, and other additives to seal our roadways in the early stages of aging. Recently, Public Works completed an extensive slurry seal project in the North Sphere area and the Palm Desert Country Club areas. About 7.5 million square feet of surface area was slurry sealed. Another method is called street rehabilitation. Now, this is an example of what was done on Monterey Avenue. And you'll see here that a rehabilitation is really when a street has reached its end of useful life. In such cases, and what's pretty much current here in our city is when we conducted these rehabs, we're going down up to about 20 inches down to the asphalt base. We grind that up and then treat it with cement for stabilization prior to applying new asphalt concrete. One item I wanted to share with you is that we are currently under construction with the Cook Street Rehabilitation. And this area encompasses Frank Sinatra to Riviera, northbound, southbound, a total of 3 lineal miles. This slide provides us just a recap of the past 5 years of streets CIP and maintenance activities by category. So the slurry sealing, resurfacing, which is typically a light grind and overlay of asphalt. Rehabilitation, also known as full depth reclamation, and then also our maintenance activities through our corporate yard, repairing potholes. And so as infrastructure continues to age, you'll see a slight increase in our budget as the years go by. Street issues are reported in a variety of ways. One of these tools that are used is to simply place an item on our website, City of Palm Desert, and report a problem. And so we've received some through there, about 20 in the past 9 calendar months. And then staff proactively goes and drives all of our main corridors within the city on a weekly basis. And so this helps as well. So within the months between January and September, there were 83 that were proactively brought up to our staff. You can see here, this is just a brief graph to demonstrate the 103 potholes that have been reported and addressed quickly by staff. A pothole repair consists primarily of 4 steps. The first one is to remove the debris that might be cracked and inside of the pothole. The aquafalt aggregate is applied, and then water then activates this aggregate, and then it's tampered down. It's the goal of Public Works to continue providing a high quality pavement management and be vehicle friendly, reduce potential accidents, and improve the quality of life residents and visitors expect as they experience our world-class city. This concludes my report. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, I see Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, please.
Okay, all right. Just real quick. I mean, first of all, I want to thank Andy and his team and the corporate yard fellas and ladies that maintain our streets so immaculately. I mean, it's amazing, especially when you compare it as you drive into other cities. So thank you for that. My question to you is, asphalt is petroleum based and it's black and reflects heat. Are we looking at alternatives that are maybe more environmentally friendly and that maybe are better suited to our hot desert climate?
We continue to look at advancements in asphalt and aggregate. I'm happy to share with you that the aquafalt is been proclaiming itself as 100% environmentally friendly. And so staff will continue to keep its eye open on other methods and materials.
Councilmember Quintanilla, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may trouble you, Andy, can you go back a slide or two to where you had the charts? And I think that February had a much higher amount of work than the others.
Yes, I can do that.
Perfect. So is there a particular reason that February was so high in comparison? Is it delayed maintenance? Is it supply? Is it rain? What caused that anomaly of being so high?
Yeah, I believe in that month, we were having some rain. And so typically when rain comes down, that's when you'll see some of these potholes arising. And so I can get a detailed report back to you, but typically it's because of the weather.
That's not necessary. I'll need a report just out of curiosity. I like spotting trends and asking questions.
Are there any other questions or comments? There's something charming about living in a city where you can actually count the potholes. Okay. Are there any, is there any other questions or comments? Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional reports out from the city manager's office?
Just to, like to take one moment to ask Barbara Blythe from our Public Affairs Department to brief the council and community on some upcoming events that we have, and then I will be completed. So hopefully we can elevate her. Yep, there she is.
I'm coming, I promise.
There you are.
Little slight technical delay, but I am here with you now. And thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members for having us once again give you a brief update on what is happening in the city of Palm Desert in the weeks ahead. As you've probably felt, fall is in the air, and it is the month of September, and there's nothing more that we love here in this month than in any month really doesn't have commemorations. And September has its fair share of commemorations. You hopefully have seen that Palm Desert City Hall has been lit up orange in honor of Hunger Action Month. That is to show the City of Palm Desert's support for Find Food Bank and the great work that they do in our community. We have a number of activities that the city is participating in, including we have city staff going to Find to help pack food next week. But the way the general public can get involved is perhaps to donate to our virtual food drive that we're going to have at our very first concert in the park in October. I'll come back to that in just 1 second. Another commemorative month that we've got going on is September also happens to be Emergency Preparedness Month. Our emergency management staff has already been out and about. They were actually called away the first time they were scheduled to do a public event by the Fairview fire out in the Hemet area. So all of our staff members will be called away when there is an emergency, which just proves how necessary something like an Emergency Preparedness Month is. But this past week, on Wednesday, they were at the True Value store on Town Center Way on Wednesday afternoon. They plan on being there again. Watch our social media to ensure that they will be and not called away to some other more pressing matter. But they are there to speak about things that one can do and to get some input back from the public. Like I said, True Value store on Town Center Way. It also happens to be today is the first day of National Hispanic Heritage Month. That starts today and goes through October 15th. It, of course, is in honor of all contributions that Hispanic culture has made to us here locally, and also to honor all of our South American, Central American, Mexican country members that have that mark the independence of the countries in the next 30 days. Coming up event-wise, we have here in the city of Palm Desert, September 25th, we have the first of our 5Ks of the season. It's the Zero Prostate Cancer 5K. That's at Civic Center Park. We also have, looking a little bit further ahead, we're very much looking forward to the reopening for the season of the Palm Desert Certified Farmers Market. As you may well know, it is moving to Sundays, and that will start on October 2nd. That is going to be the same time, same place, but new day. So mark your calendars for that. A couple days after that, we have Coffee with the Mayor again. Always a popular event. And so that next one is going to be on Tuesday, October 4th, 9 a.m. at the Jocelyn Center. We have coming up after that, you can just see that they're starting to stack up. We have concerts in the park. We'll start its first of a series of Thursday night concerts for the month of October, and that will be coming up then. The first one is Thursday, October 6th. These concerts start at 6 p.m. First concert of the season is by a group called We Belong. They are a tribute to Pat Benatar. The last thing I want to mention event-wise, just to put on your calendar, because again, this is something that's great to register for in advance because it is a fundraiser for the Desert Cancer Foundation. We do have coming up Paint El Paseo Pink, and that's on Saturday, October 8th. We hope to once again have a great team from the city of Palm Desert out there in our pink shirts, raising funds and awareness. For more information on any of these events, you can get city news as always on cityofpalmdesert.org. And for event type of information, please visit the calendar section of discoverpalmdesert.com. That is my report. Thank you.
I have a quick question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
The food drive is October 6th. Is that accurate?
Our virtual food drive, and basically Find is asking no longer to have, say, a donation of a canned good here or there. What helps them most is funds. And so what we've got going on, admittedly a little bit past Hunger Action Month, is at our first concerts in the park, which is Thursday, October 6th. If you visit the City of Palm Desert tent, which will be set up just off to the side of the amphitheater, we will have the means by which a person can basically scan a QR code, kind of dip their card and make a donation at that time. It is quick and easy, and it is the most efficient way to help Find.
Great, thank you. And I have one quick other question. I know we are having coffee with a cop. In that, do you know when that date, what that date is?
No, to be perfectly honest, Honorable Mayor, I would have to double check that for you. That is organized by the Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
But I can assure you that whatever date it is, we will be publicizing it on the City of Palm Desert social media accounts. And so that's my plug to watch our various Twitter and Facebook feeds for additional information that we share on our community partners events.
Great, thank you. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? No? Okay, we will then move to Mayor, council member reports and requests for action. Can we start with Kathleen Kelly, please?
Yes, I will briefly share with my colleagues that this month on my various committee assignments, I've had the pleasure of working with some of our new appointees to our city's committees and commissions. They're all getting engaged very effectively. And to the public, please know that we do still have vacancies for those of you who would like to be more involved with city government. So simply go to the website or call the clerk's office if you'd like the personal touch.
Okay, thank you. Karina Quintanilla, please.
Good morning. All right, guys, this is going to be a long one because I want to show staff and the community that you're getting your money's worth when you send me to a conference. So I attended a variety of conferences or sessions at Cal Cities, and I was a voting delegate, and I was able to vote in the Riverside County region for Kathleen, so she was able to renew her position. The keynote speaker was incredible, and I attended a session called Making Equity Stick, and I was able to bring back the 9th edition National Civic League model for a city charter. So that will help bring other ideas or resources for inclusion. And there was an amazing one called Secrets to Building Tech Economies in Underestimated Communities, which I think represents our area. I think we get underestimated a lot. And I think that there are ideas that we can incorporate to the iHub. And it really stuck out that they said they're building castles for the underdogs. So I think that that's something that we can aspire to. CEQA, ARPA, Creative Funding Solutions, and additional notes. Let's see. One thing I found very interesting is that we have something that a lot of regions don't. We have CVAG, we have CVEP, and a lot of regions don't have that. When we talk about our regional approach to homelessness, there was jaws that dropped. What do you mean you're doing this? And so that was pretty wonderful to relay. And so on that note, let's see, CVAG Public Safety, I was very happy to report to them about Palm Desert's $500 credit towards a security camera. And Mayor of Indio, Mayor Wayman Furman, said that he was interested in finding out about the program because in his city, they have a Ring camera program. So I think that would be an excellent opportunity to share some ideas, resources, and help everybody along the way. I visited the Desert Arc Center. They are looking for all kinds of resources because of COVID, where they had 700 clients. They are now down to about half of it or a quarter of it. At the Homelessness Task Force, in response to something, we get a lot of comments from the community. What are we doing? What more can we do? And as legislation has come down the while, I know that there are people that were concerned about what the care court or home court was going to create. So CARE is the Community Assessment, Recovery, and Empowerment. And HOME is the Homeless Outreach, Mediation, and Education. So this would allow, we've talked about the homeless courts, and this would allow individuals to move on forward with things like expunging their records, but it also would allow some of our most ill residents that are resisting help to be able to get a little bit more support in getting there, even if for some of them it may be involuntary. These are individuals that would qualify for a conservatorship, although that would be very rare. And I appreciated being able to highlight the fact that families can initiate that process. And right being on the back of having visited the ARC Foundation, it made me realize that as they have adults that transition into independent living, without the resources, they may be part of our homeless population. So part of the way that we are all interwoven. And let's see. And I wanted to thank Barbara for mentioning Hispanic Heritage Month, which started in 1968. And I'm kind of disappointed that we don't have any events going on in the city, or that this is a social media post that was put up this morning is the first I've heard of it. The Bright Side didn't have anything. I mean, it mentions Halloween, it mentions the solstice, but there really wasn't too much. And I think that the city can do better. And I would like to see a little bit more of that. There hasn't been anything since Cinco de Mayo. And let's see. Oh, and then DCE. I went back. Oh, you know what? I'll wait for this until we get to that section. So that's about it. Like I said, a whole lot to go over, but I wanted the community to know if you've got questions on that, please reach out. Staff, I know there's a lot of info too. Please reach out. That's the value of conferences. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Nastandi, please.
No comments this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Just to augment a little bit on Councilmember Quintanilla's report, the CARE Act is here in our state. Its distinguishing feature is that it has a compulsory component for an individual who is deemed to need support and assistance to accept housing coupled with wraparound services. That's a paradigm shift, and we will see that here in the Coachella Valley because Riverside County is one of 7 counties that will be the first to receive funding and to implement the program. I've been assured that the Coachella Valley will be a part of that process. And in fact, the homelessness court is part of the civil court system and will include the courts in Indio. This was discussed at various homelessness committees, both at CVAG and at city level, as well as public safety. And I think all affected partners and stakeholders are aware of this, including our police department, our code compliance, and we'll all work our way through this new law as it is being implemented. Additionally, at the Continuum of Care Board of Governance meeting, we were advised that Riverside County has been allocated a little over $13 million. This is just lately. There's actually a lot of funding that keeps coming our way. And so we went through and prioritized where that funding will go. I'll have further update on that when that is finalized. That's all I've got, and no request for action. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And just a little bit more on Care Court. If we all recall, we did take action and sent a letter to support that to the governor. It was emergency action on our part, and we let the governor know we absolutely support it. We can all expect to see some pushback and some legal issues. How did the governor say it? From a 4-initialed entity that's fighting back on Care Court, and it's about they feel that people are having their rights taken away, but I feel that we must take care of people who need care, and they are out there. So it's a little, plenty more to come on that on Care Court. As you heard, many of us went to Cal Cities. Many of our staff did. Rather than reporting out on everything I did, I will be putting notes together and forwarding them to the city manager to distribute as he sees fit with our staff. Hunger Action Month, we can't say that enough. Let's take care of our neighbors and make sure they're not going to bed hungry. I'm participating right now in a demographics workshop that is really interesting, really important to our housing and where we go in the future. I have one more meeting on that on Friday. Lots of other things, of course. I know we all are busy and participating in committees and commissions. I do want to mention I have a request for action. I brought back, and this was first brought up in May at SCAG at their General Assembly, and that's the Affordable Connectivity Program. And I believe that many of our community members would benefit by this. There are funds out there so that they will have lower rates for connectivity and their cable bills. So I'd like us to take a look into that. If we can have the staff check that out. I have a lot of information out and for this, and I would love to provide that information to whomever you feel is best equipped to follow up on that program. And it's the ACP program. So that's my request for action. And that's it. So now we're on non-agenda public comments, but what I would ask first is, can we have our city clerk please provide a few housekeeping remarks regarding participation in these meetings?
Yes, for those on Zoom, if you want to participate in public comment, please click the raise hand button on your computer or smartphone. If you're joining the meeting by calling in on your phone, please dial *9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, press *6 to unmute yourself. Please keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes and begin by stating your name for the record.
Okay, thank you so much. We will now move to our non-agenda public comments. Are there any comments? And I see none on my computer for any public comments for non-agendized items. I see none. Do you have any?
I see none.
Okay, then we'll move on to the consent calendar. And all matters listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and may be approved by one motion. The public may comment on any items on the consent agenda within the 3-minute time limit. Individual items may be removed by the city council for a separate discussion. Do we have any public comments on the consent calendar? And again, I see none. Okay, are there any items that the council wishes to pull from the consent calendar?
Seeing my colleagues don't have any extensions or exemptions, I would like to move forward the consent calendar as is.
Okay, are there any comments that anyone would like to make on any items on the consent calendar? Okay, and I assume that was a motion?
Indeed, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, can we have roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Nestandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move to our action calendar. And we'll go to our first item, consider implementation of the Palm Desert Turf Rebate Program in partnership with the Coachella Valley Water District, CVWD, and appropriate $1 million from the unobligated general fund reserve. Can we have a report, please?
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Amy Lawrence, Special Programs Manager, and I'd like to share my screen. I do have a presentation. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Go ahead and get this going. So today we'll be discussing a potential partnership with CVWD and a turf rebate program. In response to California's current water emergency and as part of Palm Desert's newly adopted environmental initiatives plan, staff was asked to work with CVWD on developing a turf rebate program. In addition to the state's ban on watering non-functional turf, CVWD is currently enforcing level 2 actions, which include prohibiting outdoor water use for spray irrigation during daylight hours, except to check for leaks. Restaurants can only serve water upon request, and overseeding is discouraged. As an incentive to save water, CVWD currently offers a turf rebate program for $3 per square foot of converted turf with a maximum of 10,000 square feet for residential and 25,000 square feet for commercial and HOAs. At this time, the only other city in the Coachella Valley to have a turf rebate matching program is Rancho Mirage. And over the last few months, they've allocated approximately $2 million to the program with varying match rates for residential and commercial HOA projects. This slide reflects actions taken by the Rancho Mirage City Council for their turf rebate program. As you can see, they started out on July 7th with $500,000 for a matching $3 rebate for residential and commercial HOAs. And the next two actions eventually brought the program total up to $2 million with varying rebate matches for residential and commercial HOAs. For Palm Desert, depending on the chosen match amounts and the number of projects that are residential versus commercial and HOA, with a $1 million allocation, this program could provide assistance for between 20 to 50 projects and convert 330,000 to 1 million square feet of turf to water efficient landscape. Staff's recommended outline consists of the following: appropriation of $1 million for the initial program with conditional authorization for the city manager to approve an additional 500,000, either a 2-3 match for residential and 1-2 match for commercial HOA. Applications for residential and commercial HOA to be accepted on a first come first served basis beginning on September 15th, 2022. CVWD would oversee the program, including processing all applications and providing the rebates, waive all city fees associated with the program. And CVWD will submit monthly invoices for the city's share of the rebate reimbursements, along with a list of completed projects. So in conclusion, staff is requesting approval of the Palm Desert Turf Rebate Program in partnership with CVWD to include appropriation of $1 million for the initial program from the Unobligated General Fund Reserve, conditional authorization for the city manager to appropriate an additional $500,000, authorization for the city manager to take all further actions related to the program, including waiving city fees and executing agreements approved as deformed by the city attorney, and directing staff as to the preferred matching rebates amounts, as well as division of funds for residential and commercial HOA, or making them available on a first come first served basis beginning on September 15th, 2022. And with that, we do have Victoria Lort with CVWD with us, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you. Before we go to council questions, are there any public comments? And I see none. So this is the time for public comments on this item, and I see none. So we will now, oh, wait, I take that back. We do have one comment. You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. And Julene McElquin.
Yes, Julene McElgan, and we own a property in Palm Desert. I just wanted to say that I have attended some of the meetings related to this and am really impressed with how the city has gone forward with this. I guess I have a really significant interest in the water situation throughout the Coachella Valley and throughout the Southwest United States. And I think that the proactivity of staff and of the council bringing this forward is just so important at this time. And as one of the potential homeowners associations who will make application for it, this is just so critical to us to be able to make these changes to our properties to allow us to use significantly less water. In our particular complex, for instance, we would use potentially up to 1.5 million less gallons of water a year, potentially maybe even 2 or 2.5 gallons of water, 2.5 million gallons of water a year. So that is a substantial savings. And the city, by authorizing this, would begin to see some significant changes in the water usage in Palm Desert while helping us beautify in a desert-scaped way. So I say thank you very much for bringing it forward and considering it today.
Thank you so much for your comments. I see we have another public comment. Dorian W., can you please state your name and address, and please, you have 3 minutes to address this item.
Hello, good evening, and thank you for hearing my comments today. My name is Dorian Whitney from Cathedral City. I just wanted to say that saving water is good, but I thought we approved a big surf project here, And I don't know if they're still doing that, but if they are, I think we should cancel it because of how bad the water situation has gotten. It's like every day it just gets worse. And yeah, I really don't think all the cities are trying to pop up with one now, like La Quinta and Rancho Mirage with their Disney thing. So it's just a lot of drinking water that they want to use for that. So, you know, I just want the developers and residents to be treated equally, like for them to also save water. And, you know, I don't know why we approved that, but yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dorian. Are there any other comments or questions at this time? Public comments, and I see none. So we will go to council questions, please. And I see Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. By the way, just as an aside, I think things would flow better if council could ask questions of staff directly following their report and then open it up to public comments and then to council comments.
Thank you for the suggestion.
So, two questions. Number one, could you clarify for me, please, Ms. Lawrence, the 25,000 square foot maximum, that's per project, so it could, in an HOA, compared to 10,000 per home. Are you saying that, like, if there's multiple condos in an HOA, is that 25,000 square feet per condo? What, can you clarify that for me, please?
I'd like to defer that to Victoria. Are you able to answer that question?
Certainly. Good afternoon, council members, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for the question. So the 10,000 square foot and the 25,000 square foot maximum is per project submitted. So it's certainly possible for an HOA or a commercial property to have multiple projects submitted. We've seen that in Rancho Mirage with different commercial properties, such as Eisenhower. They have a very large campus. And so for an HOA, what we're thinking, what we envision is not individual condos that would qualify most likely under the residential. We're talking more about perhaps the entryway or some of the grass areas that are more common areas within an HOA.
Okay, thank you. I think it would be important to clarify in whatever we adopt that that is for common area grounds, not per residence. My second.
That provides a lot of clarity. Thank you for that.
Thank you. My second question is, you know, I think we're presented with at least a couple different alternatives, a rebate on residential of $2 or $3, and on commercial projects, $1 or $2. And in each case, of course, by going to the slightly lower matching, we're increasing participation by 50%. So the choice kind of depends on how much demand we anticipate, right? So if we look, for example, at the residential, if we do the full match, it's 33 projects. If we do the $2 match, it's 50 projects. So it's a little bit difficult for me to evaluate that unless I have some sense of the demand, right? I mean, I don't want to give $3, for example, if there's going to be 100 applications. On the other hand, I don't want to give $2 if we're only going to have 10 applications. So I know, Ms. Lord, and by the way, good evening. It's good to see you again. I know you've had experience with this. Do you have any kind of sense as to how much demand we can anticipate?
Certainly. Amy, would you like me to take that question?
Sure.
Okay. I'll do my best to address that. And I know Amy had a methodology for how she presented this as well. So what we historically saw, and I'm going to reference Rancho Mirage just based off of that's so far the only city program that we have in the works. But so initially they did 3 for residential and 3 for the HOA commercial. And the HOA commercial projects, because they have a larger project size, we saw that the money dwindled much quicker. And so the city opted to keep residents at a full 3 to 3 match and then lower the HOA commercial side so that the dollars had the ability to go further. And as I understand the way that the staff report is written, these 50 or 33.3 projects are if it's a maximum project size submitted. And that's not typically often what we see, right? You can see anything from, a couple 100 square feet, 2,000, maximum 10,000. So it really depends on the applicant. But I'll hand it over to Amy to explain her report a little bit more.
Exactly what you said is that those numbers, the 20 to 50 projects and the maximum square feet, it's based on the maximum use of funds. And so as Victoria mentioned, not all projects use that max amount. So it's likely that there'll be far more projects coming forward.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Quintanilla, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Ms. Lawrence and Ms. Lord. I greatly appreciate all of the work that you're doing on this. My question is partially the same as Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan. Is there any historical data that you can provide in terms of the rates that were offered before? I know this isn't our first rodeo with the drought, and I know that there have been previous turf reduction programs, but to get a sense or an idea, was it roughly the similar rates that were offered? Or how can we monitor from that or learn from it to maximize our capacity? Thank you.
If I can clarify, are you talking about city rebate programs, partnerships with CVWD in the past?
That's correct.
Okay, so Tricia, I think that we found that there was one in 2010 and 2014. Do you recall what the match was? No, I want to say it was about $1 match, and I think we allocated about $100,000 for those programs. So at least that's what I read, was that it was $100,000 and it might have been a $1 match based on what CVWD had at the time, which I think that you've just recently increased your rebate to $3, and it was previously
$2. We increased it back in April of this year to offer an increased incentive to residents to try to switch over from turf to desert landscape. And yes, Amy is correct. It was previously a 1-for-1 match, $1 to $1. But of course, too, right? 2010 dollars are significantly different than 2022 dollars.
Thank you both. I appreciate that. And I'm proud of this council for understanding that these things are critical. And we've come a little bit since 2010 and 2014, but we still have a lot of work to do. Thank you both so much.
Are there any other questions or comments? And I see, I'm going to go with Councilmember Nastandi at this point.
Well, I have comments. So I heard you say comments. But
you know what? Why don't we go ahead? I think we're there.
Okay. So, reading the June 10th state mandate that we were given with the staff report, where it talks about the bans going into effect. It includes irrigation of non-functional turf, prohibited commercial, industrial, it goes on and on. I'm of the understanding that it does not include residential front lawn watering. That's not banned. And I just, wanted to just remind everybody that, our desert sits on a natural aquifer, and we are fortunate that it acts as a drought buffer. And I will say CVWD and other local water districts have done a great job of recharging and replenishing our aquifer. And the aquifer allows us to manage water in the long term, even when we have drought conditions that we experience in the state of California. And often our area, we have excess water, and CVWD sells our excess water to the Metropolitan Water District, for example, in Los Angeles. But the issue I believe before us really is Governor Newsom and the state officials are treating the drought as a one-size-fits-all policy for the whole entire state, not differentiating between our region and which has more favorable water conditions. Ironically, we live in a desert, but we still have more favorable water conditions than those people on the coastal areas up in Northern California and the rest of the state. Yet these water restrictions that are rolling out from Sacramento are basically standardized statewide. And I don't see that being fair to our residents and our taxpayers to spend money on a turf rebate program. I believe our city, CVAG, and CVWD and other water districts should focus on meaningful change at the state level and focus on making meaningful change on the drought issue. For example, advocating at the state level for having more desal water plants along the coastal areas. If we had more plants dotting up and down the coast for each water district area, it would most likely solve the long-term drought problem. So while I appreciate staff's efforts and CVWD, it just seems like an inefficient way with the turf rebate program to resolve the drought issue. So those are my comments.
Thank you. We haven't heard from Councilmember Kelly at this point.
Here's why this program makes complete sense to me. Recognizing some of the things you've said, Councilmember Nastandi. Yes, addressing the drought is going to require extensive and varied steps. See, and Ms. Lord can correct me if what I'm about to say is wrong. But what I've heard in the past is that CVWD sells water to Metropolitan Water District, in essence, as part of a swap in which we receive their allotment of Colorado River water, which is what we've been using to recharge the aquifer. And yes, credit is earned for having over many years planned to accomplish that. But we all know the Colorado River water is not the boundless resource that it used to be. So conserving usage has to be a part of the program, along with every other good idea, whether it be desalination or whatever. Conservation, reducing use has to be a part of the solution. And I would add that sometimes perception becomes its own reality. We depend upon visitors. And when visitors come to the Coachella Valley, many of them are interested in experiencing our natural environment and can be offended by an appearance of water wasting, particularly if they come from an area where they're subject to extreme restraints. So to really encourage visitors to regard the Coachella Valley as an environmental haven, if you will, I would urge us to keep in mind that appearance is important as well as the substance of conserving. So I've heard a case for using the more generous reimbursement option for residential projects and the less generous option for commercial projects. If I don't hear a different argument, I think that's where I would land, but I'd be eager to hear from my colleagues as to whether you would favor some other approach.
I have a question for you, Councilmember Kelly, if I may. You said the more generous, it was 2 or 3 for residents and 1 or 2 for commercial / HOA. I wasn't clear on what you were saying.
Well, I heard a case made to choose $3 for residential and perhaps $1 for commercial.
I see. Okay, thank you. I just wasn't clear. Councilmember Quintanilla, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I couldn't agree more with Councilmember Kelly. I think that we are in a time of a drought so terrible that there are parts of the San Joaquin Valley where people don't have water and they're having to go to ground wells. So we know all of the health limitations and dangers that can provide. I know that because of the challenges with the Colorado River and even with Lake Mead, the projections are that in 6 years, there will not be enough water in Lake Mead to make the Hoover Dam run. And so we have to be looking at a very long-term considerations. And in terms of what Councilmember Nastande said, and the governor coming in with the one size fits all, I have to recall that I don't know, maybe 3-4 months ago, there was a report that said that looking at the average daily use per California resident, we in the Coachella Valley are 3 times higher. And when we see how other Californians are struggling, it makes the most sense to me that we truly take that spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood and humanity as we look forward to being that green vanguard. And yes, there's a replenishment of the aquifer, but we know that there have been issues or else there wouldn't have been tribal lawsuits. So I think that there is room to grow, room to continue saving our water, and we are taking more than our use or our share across the state of California. So we need to band together. Thank you.
Yeah, and Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And actually, I had a question during the question period. I had my hand raised, didn't get a chance to ask my question of staff. So if it's okay with you, Mayor, I'll ask that question now and then offer some comments. Is that okay?
It became a little messy, and I heard questions and comments all over the place. That's why I just opened it up. So go.
Helps to have order in the house. Questions first, comments second. So let me go back for a second to the question. We were talking about the size of applications and the historic experience. I noted in the staff report that we do have some current data available for applications currently in place with CVWD. And if I'm reading the numbers correctly, the residential applications, there's 25 of them, average, I think about 1,300 square feet per application. And the HOA commercial applications are around, I'm going to say, looks like 11,000 square feet. Is that accurate? And I don't know if that's to you, Amy, or to you.
This, yes, I'm going to ask Victoria, is this the information, are you referring to the information provided on the applications that CVWD currently has on file?
The in progress pre-approved, yep.
Yes, the in progress pre-approved, it looks like there's 25 applications with a total square feet of 32,303. And the in progress pre-approved is 12 applications with 133,500 square feet.
Right, and if I did the math right, I think that equates to an average of 1,300 square feet per residential application and about 11,000 square feet per commercial / HOA. Okay, all right. Because that helps, I think, guide at least me and maybe all of us in terms of where we land. So as to comments, I have to say that the comments made by my colleague, Councilmember Nastande, completely resonate with me. I agree that the state can and should be doing more and be much more effective in water conservation, including desalination plants. And frankly, they seem to have rebate programs all over the place. Why not for instant hot water pumps, right? So, I mean, I can't imagine how much water is wasted at all the homes just running water, waiting for it to get hot, either in the sink or in the shower. So anyway, so those comments resonate with me, but I don't see that as mutually exclusive with what our city can and should be doing. I think there's place for all of the above. So I do support a rebate program. Having looked at the numbers, I'm going to suggest that rebate take the form of $3 matching for residential project up to 7,500 square feet. If somebody said 5,000, I'd go for that because we don't have many lots that are over 10,000 square feet. So the home takes up about more than half of that in many cases. So to go up to 10,000 per residential project to me seems excessive. So I would favor 7,500 max, maybe even 5,000 if my colleagues wanted that. But $3, we want to encourage applicants and we want to have as many projects move forward as possible. With regards to commercial HOA and HOA projects, I think the dollar matching is adequate. And I would go up to 15,000 or even 10,000 if my colleagues wanted that, but certainly not more than that. I think there's greater responsibility for commercial property owners and certainly for HOAs to take care of this problem themselves. So I'm not saying not to sweeten the pot, but I would suggest a lower limit. Thank you.
Ms. Stahl, please.
I just have one quick comment on the project limit size. The project limits we listed are what CVWD's project limits are. And for ease of their administering the program for us, we had wanted it to match their program. Otherwise, they'll have to do some additional work. So we would have to see if CVWD would be able to handle that additional stipulation that doesn't match their program.
Oh, thank you for that.
Victoria, do you want to weigh in on that? Can you give us an answer? I certainly hope you can handle that.
I will need to circle back perhaps in a few minutes. I'm communicating with our conservation manager to see if that's a possibility or not. But yes, as Tricia stated, those are our program guidelines and terms and conditions. But let me see what we can do. I'll circle back. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Kelly, please.
Yeah, I assume what would happen is that our match would apply up to the square footage that we've approved, and then the basic CVWD program would be applicable to anything beyond that. So I doubt this is complicated. I would be prepared to second Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan's motion using the higher numbers that you spoke about, the 7,500 as opposed to 5,000 for residential, because we're interested in incenting the people who are doing the most watering to make the change. So we don't want the project size cap to be too small.
Okay, and I just wonder if we could wait to hold off on motions till everyone's spoken, please. And I see that, yes, Ms. Lord.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan's question, yes, we would be able to accommodate a smaller square foot maximum for project size.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? And I see none. So, oh, wait, there are. Yes, please.
I do apologize, Madam Mayor. If I may, I just wanted to address some of the comments that were made earlier by a few of the council members, if it's okay with you. Thank you. So I heard a couple of things from both Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan and Council Member Ms. Donde. I just wanted, and also Councilmember Quintanilla. I just wanted to point out that although this is a statewide mandate for us to voluntarily reduce our water, the non-functional turf is banned. However, he called on all water agencies to adopt a stage 2 of every water agency's water shortage contingency plan. The water shortage contingency plans are part of the urban water management plans that I actually spoke about earlier this week, that a few of you attended that meeting. So the water shortage contingency plans are local to each water agency. And so what Coachella Valley Water did, we partnered with the 6 water agencies, or the additional 5 water agencies here in the Coachella Valley, and came up with that regional UWMP. And we tried to align all of our water shortage contingency plan demand actions to try to match as much as possible due to lessons learned in the past drought, where we would have individuals residing in one city, working in another city, and those 2 cities had different drought measures in place. And so although it is a statewide mandate, something that all water agencies across the state have advocated for very much so is for local control, because each area in California is significantly different, and we recognize that here. And so we're very grateful that we have these water shortage contingency plans in place, and that they are specific to our region. That's why, although we're at a level 2 in LA, you know, it is much different in terms of restrictions than what we have here, which is still watering every day a week, just not during the daylight. In other places, you see that limited to maybe 3 days a week or 1 day a week. Thank you. Oh, and also, I do just want to express Coachella Valley Water District's gratitude to the council for bringing this forward and considering a matching incentive for its residents and HOA and commercial properties. I also want to commend staff. Amy and Trisha have been formidable to work with throughout this process. So thank you, and thank you too for whatever potential outcome we see here today. It's definitely a great partnership that we as the water district can have with our cities to provide further incentives to help us all be a part of the solution for drought here. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I have just a few comments I wish to make. And I understand so much of what I heard today from all of my colleagues. And I know Sacramento does tend to frustrate us. And I want to remind everybody that we did vote in 2014 to pass a bond that would provide $7.5 billion for repairing, replacing, implementing new water infrastructure. And that has not been done. Nonetheless, we need to respect our environment and we need to do the right thing. And I'm looking at these numbers and I would say we go with the highest number per square foot. It's not necessarily we're looking at how many square feet, or it's how many people who might not be otherwise able to afford this, can we help in this direction? And what we do know is the cost of seed last year, grass seed went up 300%. And water is not going to get any less expensive either. So if we can help our community members prepare for the future, what we know is coming, we're doing the right thing. And we are at the same time are respecting our environment. And with the commercial and HOA, I also agree we should go to the 25,000 to the highest number of square feet, because a lot of our commercial and merchants, they've had a tough time through COVID. Why wouldn't we want to help them do the best thing to help them prepare as they go forward? So I would also ask for the number, the $2 for commercial and HOA, and the maximum project side as provided in our staff report. We need to help people move forward. Some people wouldn't be able to afford it without this, and we need to help them. And these are our neighbors and our community members. And in the future, when grass seed continues to go up and the cost of water continues to go up, we can help them out today. And I think this is an opportunity to do so. We've done this before with turf rebate. It's made a difference. People have gotten creative, done the right thing, and we need to continue respecting the environment. So those are my comments, and I see Mayor Pro Tem has his hand up again.
Motion time yet? I guess we can do that at any time. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the staff report with the recommendations as presented, with the following limitations. And these limitations seek not only incentivize people to do the right thing with regards to the environment, but also to reach as many people as possible. So the limits I would include in my motion are a reimbursement of $3 per square foot residential up to 7,500 square feet, $1 per square foot reimbursement on HOA/commercial up to 15,000 square feet. Thank you.
I second the motion.
And I will offer a substitute motion because we want to reach as many people as possible, true. And if we don't provide them the appropriate incentive, they may not sign up because they may not feel that the rebate is enough to help them. So my substitute motion would be to support the staff report as presented.
I'm not sure what that means because staff didn't make a recommendation either way on the reimbursement level, the matching level.
Well, what did we have with that we were changing what CVWD was doing? Maximum project
Honorable Mayor, we were requesting whether you wanted to go with a $3 matching rebate or a $2 rebate for residential.
Okay, so I would go with the $3. And what is our maximum project size then going to be suggested?
Right now, CVWD guidelines are 10,000 square feet for residential.
And that's what I'm suggesting, the 10,000 square feet at $3 and the 25,000 square feet at $2. And there is not a second. Okay, then the motion fails due to a lack of a second. We go back to the original motion. So we have a motion and a second. And would you repeat that, please?
Okay, so the motion was to approve staff's recommendation as set forth in the staff report with the following limitations: a $3 match for residential projects up to 7,500 square feet, a $1 match for commercial / HOA projects up to 15,000 square feet.
Okay, and we have a second from Councilmember Quintanilla. Can we have a vote, please? Roll call vote. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I have a hand up. Ms. Lawrence.
I just wanted to clarify if the council is deciding to go with a first come, first served basis, or if they would like to divide the funds between residential and commercial. You have the option to say place $500,000 for residential, 500,000 for commercial, or you can do it on a first come, first served basis, or whatever formula you choose, 600, 400. I know that's a lot of options coming your way.
Okay, thank you. I see Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Ms. Lawrence, for presenting that suggestion. I would like to slightly modify then Mayor Pro Tem's suggestion. I would allot that we need to do half and half. We want to be sure that our commercial partners don't come in and take away some residential opportunities for people that may not hear about it in time. So I do think it would be appropriate to make a division.
If I might, with regards to the original motion, I would protect or I would incentivize our residents more than commercial and HOAs. And I would suggest a first come, first serve with commercial not to exceed 250,000, therefore leaving up to 750,000 for residential properties.
I like that. I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you.
I see Councilmember Kelly, please.
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me is looking at the current pending applications. The square footage covered by the commercial applications is about 4 times as great as the total square footage covered by residential applications. So I don't know if that's something you want to take account of. If you cap commercial at 250, I would expect we're going to run out pretty fast of commercial versus residential.
Let me ask you, Councilmember Kelly, what if that happened, it would also give us an opportunity to see how residential goes. And if residential is lagging, then maybe it comes back to council and we free up additional dollars for commercial. My concern, and this is what I want your feedback on, is I don't want to preempt our residents from these funds if there's significant demand from both sectors, both residents and commercial and HOAs. What do you think?
That could be workable. Of course, there are some time constraints in getting something before council, but I applaud the goal of making sure that funds are available for our residents who could well need this support more than commercial applicants who, of course, are comparing the cost of keeping the turf versus replacing the turf, and in many instances concluding that simply maintaining the turf is so expensive that they'd like to replace it. So with the clarification, the council's open to making adjustments based on experience. Let's steam ahead.
And I want clarity again on this, because it's, so I know we keep talking about residents and commercial. So when we have lumped HOAs into commercial. So does that mean that a individual resident within an HOA is no longer to be classified under HOA? They will be classified as a resident?
No, that was not my intent.
Wait, I'm asking Tricia Stahl and Amy Lawrence.
We're asking for clarification of the motion.
No, I'm not. I'm asking clarification on what's written here, because we keep saying commercial and yet it's not, doesn't say commercial. It says commercial / HOA.
And that comes from CVWD's guidelines. So I believe that and Victoria can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you do loop in commercial and HOA together.
Yes, we do. And by HOA, we mean once again, the larger HOA group. So like your common areas, like if you reside in an HOA, you're considered a residential property. This is mainly for like the common spaces or anything on the outside of the HOA community.
I see.
Like,
okay, so the residents, the home itself then goes under the residential program, even though they live within an HOA.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Wow. You know why that's difficult? Because even though we say common area, so many residents within HOAs are taken care of by the HOA. You know, they pay one fee and everyone's taken care of, but it's not always separate residents within an HOA.
Understood. I'm
not trying to make it difficult.
No, I can circle back and seek for some clarification. I know personally, I live in an HOA and my HOA manages my front. I manage the back. However, our HOA has informed us that although they manage it, we still own the front. And so that could be that deciding factor there, that even though it is managed by, you still own the front part of the property. But I can check with our water management department and see how they differentiate that.
Yeah, that's a little squishy. Okay, Amy Lawrence, please.
Thank you. I would like to respectfully remind the council that there is also another item to consider, and that was an appropriation of $1 million for this program, and then also giving the city manager conditional authorization to appropriate an additional $500,000 to the program. So if you would like to weigh in on that, that would be helpful.
Great, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Thank you. And I appreciate the clarification of CVWD program, but of course we're here to do what we want to do as a city, and that's why I thought clarification of the motion was in order. So let me go to that. First of all, kind of working backwards to your point, Amy, the motion was to accept staff recommendation, which includes the $1 million allocation as well as the discretionary $500,000 allocation. The only clarification or augmentation of the staff recommendation is the following. Let me restate it. Residential matching shall be $3 per square foot up to 7,500 square feet. HOA/commercial shall be $1 per square foot up to 15,000 square feet. In the case of HOAs, that would refer to common area. And just by way of clarification, if a resident in an HOA owns their property and wants to apply, they can. The process would be first come, first serve, with initially no more than 250,000 allocated to the commercial/HOA common area projects, with the remainder available to residential properties. That's the motion. I hope it's clear. And if it is acceptable with the second, maybe we can move on to a vote finally.
Well, I see other hands up and I would like to give everyone the opportunity to speak. Councilmember
Thank you, Madam
Quintanilla,
Mayor.
please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I see the train of thought in terms of where do we draw the lines and who's managing. And everyone knows I don't always agree with the Mayor Pro Tem, but this is one where I think we're exactly right in the same way. And this is what is the business of the city and what is the business of the HOA. It is not up to us to figure out how they're billing people. We are here to save water. If the HOAs manage it, then they can go and figure out their charters, their rules, and how they want to manage it. We are here to offer turf reduction. We're here to incentivize native landscape. And I mean, if we consider it, when I did the tour of the mosquito district, they mentioned that because of the grass, all the little eye gnats, those are actually a vector because a few years ago, they were responsible for spreading pink eye. So there's a lot of incentives to do this beyond just the water.
Victoria Lord,
And I said,
please.
Thank you, Mayor Harnick. I think, so I misspoke earlier. I'm hearing from our conservation department that if the front is managed by the HOA, that means that the front is on an irrigation meter and it's a separate meter than the one serving the customer or the resident. And so therefore the HOA would need to apply. Now, if the HOA wants to apply, the homeowner does the work. That's an agreement between the HOA and the homeowner. They could apply for the rebate and then as a pass-through, give the money to the resident. But it is served from two different meters.
Okay, thank you for all the work you're doing, like on the fly for us. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, thanks. And Amy Lawrence.
I am very sorry, but our WISE Director of Finance is asking that for that additional $500,000 upon conditional approval by the city manager, if you would like to allocate that and divide it however you'd like, if you'd like to give us that information tonight, that would be very helpful.
Councilmember Kelly, please.
I had no idea this would take this long. Why don't we include in the motion, Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, that the city manager can adjust the allocation between residential and commercial if the application pattern reflects a clear basis to do that and report to us, instead of making it come back to us as a precondition.
Brilliant. I'm happy to motion if that's okay with the seconder.
And that would apply to the $500,000.
I wholeheartedly support and would this then be a substitute motion? I second the substitute motion.
We're still clarifying.
It was a friendly amendment.
Yeah, and I hope we're as clear as we can be.
As clear as water.
Okay, I do believe we are ready to vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Hallelujah. Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi.
No.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Madam Mayor, this discussion has made me very thirsty. So can we possibly take a 10-minute break?
Was that a water reference? Yes, we can take a 10-minute break. It is 5:33. We'll be back at 5:44. 5:45. Okay, it is 5:45. Is everybody back and ready to go? Okay. It looks like Councilmember Kelly, are you back with us? Okay, we are ready to go now. We are now at action item B, receive and file informational report on the history of city council actions related to desert community energy, DCE, and provide staff with direction on future actions related to DCE. Can we have a staff report, please?
Absolutely. Hello again, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Amy Lawrence, Special Programs Manager. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Let's go ahead and start from the beginning. And today we're here to talk about Desert Community Energy, also referred to as DCE. DCE is a not-for-profit, publicly owned electricity provider known as Community Choice Aggregate, made possible by a collaboration between cities. DCE launched in Palm Springs in April of 2020 and is currently the only city in the Coachella Valley to join thus far. The City Council has a long history of discussions on the potential risks and benefits of joining a CCA dating back to 2017. On February 28, 2019, the City Council declined to launch DCE at the time, but opted to continue to collaborate with a 4-1 vote. On August 25th, 2022, the City Council adopted an environmental initiatives plan, and a recommendation was made to hold a study session to discuss joining DCE for municipal accounts. After that meeting, staff was instructed to provide the City Council with a report of DCE recommendations and actions, and to request direction on future actions related to DCE. So question is, can Palm Desert opt in just for municipal accounts? DCE representatives recently informed city staff that opting in for just municipal accounts is not an option. According to the CPUC, the city may phase in customer groups over time, municipal, commercial, and residential. However, regulations require that eventually enrollment in DCE include all city residents. As for launch information, in order to join DCE in 2024, the city must take action in early 2023 so that DCE can report their load forecasts. Additionally, DCE estimated that the cost for the city to join municipal accounts would be an additional $215,000 per year, and would result in a reduction of 2,100 metric tons in greenhouse gas emissions annually. So in conclusion, staff is requesting that the City Council receive and file this report pertaining to DCE participation for municipal accounts, and then also discuss the scope of further study session pertaining to DCE. And with that, we have a few representatives with us from DCE to answer questions. And I'll stop sharing now.
Great, thank you. Before we go to questions of council, I'm going to ask if there is any public comment following staff's report. And I see no public comments. Okay, so let's go to questions from the council. Are there any questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, please.
Amy, thank you for that report. I just want to get some clarification. this council has already voted to have a study session regarding DCE. So I'm a little unclear why this discussion is coming up before that study session and what exactly it is that you need from us tonight.
I'd like to defer to the city manager on that if possible.
Yeah, I think the question that I've been receiving from some of your colleagues, Council Mayor Pro Tem, is exactly what would that study session entail? Do we want to go back to the history? Do we want to talk about what DC is? Do we want to talk about greenhouse gases and projected impacts on residents? Where are we taking the study session was really the reason this was brought back.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In terms of the pros and cons, because we've all heard DCE have a lot of mixed reviews, I would like to know, now that Palm Springs has instituted, I believe, for 2 years now, if there's any way for staff to collect some of that data so that we can be informed by best practices. Thank you.
Was
that a request of staff? I'm sorry.
I think it may have been.
Yes, it was a request to see if Palm Springs has any historic data now that they've rolled it out for 2 years.
Can certainly look into that.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, you have a question?
I was going to ask you, are we at a point where we're responding to staff's request for direction about the meeting, or is that premature?
Well, I don't see any other questions, so why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
Did we invite public comment?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you.
At the very beginning.
Yeah, so as my colleague, Councilmember Quintanilla indicated, the very reason that I made this request and council went along with that request is so it's really for an update. We now have empirical data to help us as a council and us as a city better evaluate whether this is something that we want to pursue. The last time we looked at whether we wanted to give our residents an opportunity to opt in was 3 years ago. And at that time, it was kind of a speculative academic question. There were a lot of good questions at that time. How would it work? How would it roll out? How would residents understand their options? We now have empirical data and experience that answers all those questions. So my point personally in having the study session, I hope this is helpful to you, Amy, is so that we can address many of the questions that were asked before, but now with knowledge and experience. Does that make sense, Amy? And is that helpful to you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Quintanilla, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Earlier, I did have another question, but I can put it out there to Ms. Lawrence now. One of the costs that could be associated with it, should we decide to move forward, would be a media campaign. Again, that was one of the considerations and concerns in the city of Palm Springs. So if possible, in whatever a study session comes forward, I would like to have information regarding the cost. In terms of my comment, again, I wholeheartedly agree on environmental issues with Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan. It has been a few years, empirical data is available. We can't fight the science. We can't fight the science. And I think it was the February 2018 meeting, February 28th. I'm not sure quite what year it was, but I asked staff to bring historical data. One of the council members said that we weren't sure if climate change was real. I hope that in the time since that, we have seen the prolific wildfires. We have seen the incredible things that climate change has done. Even with 1 degree Celsius, that has changed what it's done ecologically, what it's done to the ocean. And we can't say that we want Palm Desert to be the green vanguard if we're not going to go all in and make sure that we're providing cleaner air, not only for our residents now, but for future generations. Thank you.
Councilmember Nastandi, please.
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to clarify, this was an information and file. Are we having a discussion about the merits, or what is our focus?
Well, there is a receive and file. There is also a second piece to provide staff with direction on future actions related to DCE. So the receive and file is the easy part, and then the direction for future actions is the other piece of this.
I think that SoCal Edison can provide the same, like all the comments Councilmember Cantanilla made about going green and whatnot. Edison does that as well. And I believe we've discussed this issue, and
did you conclude? Okay, are you finished, Councilmember Nastandi? I'm sorry.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, please.
Yeah, just for point of clarification, again, I think what we're discussing today is we're accepting the and filing an informational report, and we're limiting any other discussion to providing staff with feedback with regard to the study session, which has already been approved by this council. To go beyond that, to start debating the merits of DC would not only be premature because we don't have critical information at hand yet. That's what the study session is for, but would also be inappropriate because we're not in a position to address that when council has already approved a study session. So I hope what we do tonight is accept and file the informational report and then simply give staff feedback about the content and the goal of the study session.
Okay. Councilmember Kelly, please.
Yes. I want to make sure I understand something with crystal clarity before I proceed. When I joined in the motion to ask for the study session, I thought it was possible to consider launching DCE for municipal accounts without that being a commitment to move forward with commercial or residential accounts. And have we now discovered that if we were to adopt DCE for municipal accounts, that would have to be part of a larger commitment to progress to full launch affecting all Palm Desert accounts?
That was my understanding.
Yes.
So if that's the case, as one of the people who voted to approve the study session, I am inclined tonight to move for reconsideration and land differently. And this is the reason. The answer to the question I just asked tells us that any further consideration of DCE has to be, in essence, a reevaluation of whether this council should launch for the full city. And as someone who has been watching the facts unfold, I do not see a sufficient change or evolution of the facts to warrant a reconsideration of launch for the full city. That being true, I fear that a study session would put staff to a whole bunch of work to no avail. And here's why I say that the evolution of facts has not been such as to warrant a reconsideration on the merits. I do want to check one fact with a representative of DCE. I see Mr. Kirk is here. Perhaps others are here. So great. Here's my question. On the DCE website, the latest information about energy mix in the 100% carbon-free option shows about 45% large hydroelectric power. I've also seen a postcard approved for use in 2022, which estimates the amount of large hydroelectric power in the DCE carbon-free choice, right around 64%. Is that 64% current?
And without knowing specifically the reference material, I do have Kenyon Potter, who's our new Director of Energy and Sustainability here, and David Friedman, who is our Program Manager of everything DCE, including the regulatory filings. One thing I can say is I did notice in our recent resource mix that we actually had a high degree of hydropower for the non 100% carbon free. So whether we're comparing apples to apples in those two, the 44% and 60 something percent, I'm not sure, but there's no doubt that DCE has been buying a lot of large hydro because it's cheaper and easier to acquire early on.
And did Mr. Potter have anything to add?
You are muted.
Hi, this is Kenyon Potter. If I may add to what Tom said, we do have hydropower in the mix. And as he said, we purchased a good amount of that as part of the portfolio early on. But we are also soliciting wind power and geothermal power and other sources of renewable power. Does that answer your question?
Generally, I'm hoping someone knows if 64% of the 100% carbon-free choice currently is composed of large hydroelectric power.
Yes, it's large hydropower mostly. The exact mix here is very little small hydropower in the mix.
Okay, so the exact same conditions exist today that caused me to conclude we should not decide to launch for the entire city of Palm Desert 3 years ago. That's why I'd like to reconsider the study session and frankly spare staff a considerable amount of work if the majority of the council agree with me. And I don't want to take too deep a dive into the merits, but I probably need to at least say something in a summary fashion so that the public listening know where I'm coming from. Every single member of this council wants to reduce our carbon footprint. That's why we were unanimous in insisting that our environmental initiative should be a key part of the city's goals. But it's a fiction that launching DCE can help. When the state adopted green energy guidelines, large hydroelectric power was excluded at the insistence of environmental advocates. This is key. It was excluded at the insistence of environmental advocates, and that's probably why it's available at a reasonable price, because environmental advocates did not want to create any further incentive for construction of dams with the environmental consequences that brings by way of carbon footprint and otherwise, and did want to maximize the incentive for true renewables. So to launch into a system that is hugely reliant on a form of energy explicitly excluded when the state defined its green energy goals is not moving us forward. There is an existing market for large hydro. We don't do anything good for the world by helping to consume the large hydro that's available. If I'm not mistaken, if we were to compare the energy mix of DCE's carbon-free with SCE's current basic account, the amount of true renewable, such as solar, is almost equivalent. So everything I've said so far has to be considered at the same time as we acknowledge that because DCE is small, its degree of capitalization exposes ratepayers to risks if there is unexpected fluctuation in the energy market. Those are the considerations that weighed on me 3 years ago. They still are determinative in my estimation. And so as one person who supported the study session, I think we have to reconsider that and spare staff the extensive effort that would be entailed in revisiting this issue.
Thank you. I'm going to take these in order and hopefully I get this right. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So, number one, I don't believe that every council member wants to reduce our carbon footprint. I believe that those council members who vote against opting into DC, in fact, do not want to reduce our carbon footprint. They are talking the talk, but not walking the walk. The biggest, most impactful thing we can do to help our environment as a city is allow our residents choice, the choice of opting into DCE. However, I'm not going to have that discussion tonight. I'm also disappointed that at least some of my colleagues seem to have their mind made up before receiving updated critical information that, if they have an open mind, might persuade them one way or the other. But, Mayor, I have a procedural issue to bring up. This whole discussion, and I wish I could have said it before Councilmember Kelly launched into her comments, this discussion is inappropriate. There was no public notice about canceling the study session. Let me pause here before I go further and just ask staff, why is it here? How did this come to be on our agenda tonight? The last time the council addressed it, they said, let's have a study session. Everybody said, okay. How did we get here?
How we got here was I have received questions from your colleagues who voted on the motion that was made at the last meeting asking what we are going to be talking about at the study session. And this is an opportunity for the 5 of you to have that conversation together and agree what staff's directive is. That's how we got here.
Okay, and I accepted that, but here we are, I guess, because the staff report doesn't really say that, Mr. Holman. What it says is provide staff with direction on future actions related to DCE. Had it said provide staff with guidance about the content and the objective of the study session, then we wouldn't be I think, inappropriately entering into a debate about DCE. So from a point of order, let's limit the discussion tonight about the content and the goal of the study session. To do anything other than that is completely inappropriate. Just because some council members have second thoughts, that tail should not be wagging the dog. There's policy and procedure to be adhered to. And that policy, by the way, calls for action to be taken when there's a request for action by 2 or more council members. And the request for the study session started off as a request by 2 council members for that study session, and then morphed into part of the motion. So for that additional reason, if what we need to do is just have a request for action, let's just do that. But we are, one way or another, don't get it wrong, going to have a study session about DCE, and this council will be asked to make it clear to their constituents, the voters, the residents, how they stand on the environment. But tonight is not the appropriate place to do that. Again, I think to have a discussion and worse, for council to make a decision about whether or not to opt into DCE or not is faulty, because it has not been publicly noticed. And this thing about municipal accounts, I don't get it. That's irrelevant, right? That's not before us tonight. We certainly can and should postpone any kind of discussion decision about actually opting into those municipal accounts after these very good questions that have come up tonight are answered in the study session. Hello, again, a reason for the study session. But to use that as an excuse for not opting into DC is not only premature, but disingenuous. So I want to make it clear from a point of order standpoint, and maybe we need to hear from our city clerk, that the only thing we can and should be discussing tonight is the content of the study session and its goals and objectives. Can I get some clarification on that from staff, please?
We'll wait to hear from other people before we go there. Councilmember Quintanilla, please.
Order standpoint, to get that clarified now before we have further discussion illegally about something that has not been noticed. So I am asking.
Staff is hereby requesting direction on future actions related to DCE, e.g. to schedule a study session, contract with a consultant for feasibility study and opt-in for municipal accounts, etc. Below is a chronology. So it is very broad, what it says right here in the staff report. So Councilmember Quintanilla, please.
Our city manager clarified that the item for discussion tonight is the content and objective of the study session. I'm calling for a point of order, Madam Mayor, and that I think requires a response immediately. And I'm asking staff and or legal counsel to opine on what we can and cannot discuss tonight. I don't know why you're afraid
I second that request. I second the request.
Well, it's not a motion, but that's kind of you.
It may not be a motion, but it's part of insisting that this goes through the right procedures.
Excuse me. Would our attorney like to weigh in on this?
Not really, but I guess I'm going to have to. First of all, point of orders are directed to the mayor. The mayor makes the call subject to ultimately overruling by the city council, right? So if you want to frame it, policies and procedures, ultimately the city council, the majority of the city council controls its agenda, which is kind of the background question here. City councils, in exercising that authority to control agendas, have always been very mindful of minorities, right? So, I would kind of frame it generally in that. If, and I don't want to interject into the policy discussion here, but if 3 members of the city council have already decided that this is hopeless, then pragmatically, it doesn't make much sense on going forward. Otherwise, it would seem that it should be moved forward to a study session, which would be fully informed, fully debate, and then, let the chips fall where they may. Was that just any kind of clear, or is that just totally muddled at this point? Ultimately,
it was. I would characterize that as a non-answer.
Ultimately, it's up to the city council, the majority of the city council, to decide where they want to take this.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
should we take a vote on what the majority of the council wants to do?
We could, but only if we ask for, we'd have to do a 4/5 vote to put that on the agenda to have that vote. But the Councilmember Kelly, you have waited remarkably.
I was
Well,
actually waiting before her. Thank you.
and I was going to say that, so please take your turn.
Thank you. I was going to defer to Mr. Kirk because he has a lot of the information that we want, and then I will ask. Thank you.
I remember when Bob Hargreaves gave me advice, I should stay out of this. And I'm not going to weigh into the policy debate, but Council member Kelly, one aspect of this is, and you know, counting what is renewable and what is not depends on the eye of the regulator. And in the state of California, that's a little different than it is in Nevada or perhaps Germany. In the city of Palm Springs, through DCE, they decided what they really cared about is metric tons of carbon emissions. They're called CO2 equivalents. And now I kind of get what you were referring to. I looked it up on our own website. We actually disclose, just like Southern California Edison, what is our resource mix? And you pointed out we do have, for one of the, we provide two products in Palm Springs. One, we call it 100% carbon free, and the other is Desert Saver. And for each of those, we identify what kind of power do we buy for those, and so does Edison. And kind of the key thing for those of us that care about putting carbon into the atmosphere, I'll focus only on what all of these interest, CCAs and Edison, have to disclose, and that is how many pounds of carbon you put in the air. The statewide average is 466 pounds. Southern California Edison's average power mix is 598. Higher than the statewide average. Their 100% carbon free, of course, is 0, but you can't get it because they don't offer it and they haven't for months. So their average is higher than the state average. At Desert Community Energy, however we got there, there may be a question about whether you should include large hydro or not. Our average for both 100% carbon free and the Desert Saver is 0. It's not going to stay that way, but Desert Saver we've been offering at 0 impacts on carbon emissions because the city of Palm Springs and the vice chairman of Desert Community Energy, Mr. Jonathan himself, have said if we could get 0% to 0% and still save customers money, which we are with that product, let's do it. So 4 numbers, 466 pounds into the atmosphere statewide. Edison's average is higher than that at 598 pounds. Desert Community Energy is 0. The rest of this is a policy debate, and that's up for you to consider, and I'd be happy to provide any facts or details related to DCE.
Thank you. Karina Quintanilla, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And first, let me apologize, Councilmember Kelly. I just wanted to be sure that we heard from Mr. Kirk. He has a lot of the info and no sense for us to be tossing back and forth. I concur that we need to have a study session. I think that that was the original conversation. I believe Councilmember Jonathan brought it up. And when it wasn't on the agenda, I asked again, mentioning that I had expressed interest in that as well. So that's kind of how we got here as we toss it all around. There is a lot of information, and I completely agree that this would be a lot of work for staff, but this is something we owe to the residents. And I am always saying, I don't want to put staff through unnecessary work. You may have heard me many times say, I respect what staff does, but in this one, we have to respect the environment, as Madam Mayor said about an hour ago. We have to respect the environment, and this is one way to clearly do it. And I know that there's a lot of staff members equally passionate about the environment. I've had those conversations with Ms. Lawrence, and I can assure you that there's folks like the Sierra Club. There are members of the Sierra Club that live in Palm Desert that are constantly reaching out. If you're not going to ban styrofoam, then at least get us into DCE. You can't say you're so green if you're doing all of these other things. So I truly believe that this may have been the skeleton to say this is how we got here, but now we're going to build the muscle mass to see how we can move forward. Thank you.
Mr. Kirk, your hand is still up. Is that because you have more to say, or you're now taking Bob Hargreaves' advice? Councilmember Kelly, please.
So we've sure gotten ourselves all twisted up. Despite the fact, Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, I do insist that all council members on this council do care about reducing our carbon footprint. Look, yes, we owe it to our residents to have a good substantive discussion about DCE. And we did it. And we can't function as a council if we keep going back to things that we've already decided. I don't want to be guilty of dragging us further into the merits, but I do want to briefly say, after what Tom shared, is that my focus has been on the impact we have on total energy usage in the state, not just isolating our numbers. And that's what's been consequential to me in past decision making. So process is important. Staying within the lines is important. We have agreed that when two council members ask for something, we should do it. And that was a helpful refinement to our policy. But there's another policy that comes into play here. And that other policy is the usual rule of procedure that you don't reconsider something unless one of the people who is in the majority speaks up and says, it's time to reconsider it. And when it comes to DCE, we don't have a council member who was in the majority the last time this was considered, the last time launch for the whole city was considered, who has said it's time to reconsider this. I was in the majority, Mayor Harnick was in the majority, Councilmember Nastante was in the majority. So I think, frankly, we have a situation here where two policies come into play. And because the facts have changed since we voted for a study session, if it's in order, I do want to move to reconsider the direction to staff to hold a study session, because I was in the majority in approving that study session. I was very empathetic that we had not explicitly looked at the issue of isolating launch for our municipal accounts. But now that we know we can't isolate that issue if it's in order, I would move to reconsider the direction to staff to hold a study session.
Did I hear that was a motion?
I didn't hear a motion, but I think I'm up, Mayor.
Yes, I
I'll
did.
second the motion then.
Okay, if there is a motion and a second, and I still see a hand up, that is Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
So let me get this straight. There's a motion on the table not to have a study session about desert community energy, and there's a motion on the table to not opt in municipal accounts, Then there's a statement that all council members support a reduction in our footprint and to protect the environment. Anything about that seem inconsistent to anyone? To me, it certainly does. Here's the problem. I'm not understanding. Look, the last time we looked at this issue was 3.5 years ago. Think about how this world has changed and how much it has changed in 3.5 years. Not to mention that we now, for the first time, have empirical data, actual real world experience with regards to DCE. Why the resistance to gain a further understanding about this very important issue that we all purport to care so much about? Why is there resistance to be out in the open, to be transparent, to get more information so that we can make an educated and knowledgeable and dispassionate and objective decision? Why is there that resistance? I just don't get that. You know, when Tom Kirk spoke, I'm guessing none of us knew that information. A simple example of one small iota of the information that we would garner from a study session. Have all our questions answered, new information coming to light. Are we at a point where we lack an open mind that says, you know what, I might get information that may or may not change my mind? Are we really at that point already on this issue in particular? I would hope not. Here's the bottom line. If this motion passes, I'm going to follow it up with a request for action for a study session. I suspect there may be a second council member to support that. And then guess what, folks? We're going to have a study session. That's our incontrovertible policy. It's procedure. So you may want to consider withdrawing that motion, or we can go through it and then I'll put in my request for action. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At this point, I would like to clarify, out of all of the motions that have been tossed around, which is the motion that stands, which are the substitutes, and when we do go to a vote, which one are we voting?
I wasn't aware of more than one motion. Was there, I'll ask the clerk, was there more than one motion?
Currently, I'm at with one motion, a motion for reconsideration made by Councilmember Kelly and seconded by Councilmember Nastandi. And that motion does require, does prevail over any other discussion. So that has to be considered before anything else.
Great, thank you.
My apologies, I thought there was another one.
Are there any other questions or comments? I see Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan's hand is up.
Question, I misunderstood the motion then. I thought the motion was specifically not to have a study session and specifically for the city municipal accounts not to opt into DCE.
If my understanding is correct, and I'll ask Councilmember Kelly to chime in, she made a motion for reconsideration of her previous decision and vote to support the study session. And that reconsideration would take precedence over any other discussion. And then if that motion passes, then the previous motion to have the study session would be discussed again, and then the council could decide if they want to have the study session.
Councilmember Kelly, would that be correct?
Perfect.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And since this was not, it seems like we wandered off in all sorts of directions. And I do think the staff request on the staff report was clear. I am going to hold any comments regarding this issue and just ask for a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Nay.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi.
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Nay.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2 for the previous motion to be rescinded.
Thank you. And though we've had the vote, it appears Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan would like to speak some more.
Actually, I'd like to make a request for action and schedule a study session regarding desert community energy.
I wholeheartedly support.
And Mayor, I'll remind you that per our process and procedure and policy, that's all it takes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Well, as I understood the instructions from our city clerk, reconsidering the decision means that the past decision to hold a study session is now before us to be determined. He's nodding yes. So this is not a case where the usual rule of two applies. We made the decision as a group to hold a study session. That decision is now being reconsidered.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan?
Thank you, Mayor. I couldn't disagree more. There's no reason to insert exceptions to our policy. Our policy with regards to a request for action is very simple, very direct, very clear. If one council member makes a request for action and one or more council members support that request, then it's done, it's complied with. That's what just happened here. There's no basis for denying or making an exception to that policy.
Perhaps we can do that that's why we have an area on our agenda, and it's mayor and council member reports and requests for actions. We are beyond that part in the agenda. Maybe you'd like to save that request for our next meeting. Yes, Councilmember Kelly.
I wholeheartedly agree that good, consistent process is important. What I tried to feature earlier when I spoke is that this is a somewhat special circumstance because it concerns an issue that was previously addressed by the council. And when an issue has been previously addressed, the DCE issue, ordinarily someone who was on the prevailing side would need to support spending more time on it. And that condition of reconsideration hasn't been met. That's why I think this is a somewhat specialized circumstance insofar as our general policy is concerned, saying that two people can ask for something to happen. So I respect Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, the desire for consistent process. I truly do. And there'll be times when I'm one of the two people who's asking for something to happen. We're all in that position. So we want to respect that prerogative. But we don't want that prerogative to be used to force the whole council to re-examine an issue that's been the subject of full debate and decision unless someone in the majority from that prior outcome supports opening up the topic again. That is good process. If any two people could ask for a study session in that circumstance, we could have a scenario where all 3-2 votes got re-examined in a study session, and it could be exceedingly inefficient. So that's where I'm coming from. I respect good process. I respect my colleagues' sincere desire to have this looked at. And in keeping with that, I keep up with information on DCE as much as I can, so that if I see something that would enable me to join you in asking for a fresh look, I can do that, but we're not there.
Okay, Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I am used to suggesting things that go muted by everyone else. So I understand that, it does require two people for things to advance. I also would like to clarify, this is an entirely different council. It is not made up by the same people. And I am entitled to be able to present a request to catch up and to engage new voters that are part of the city and new residents. The world is on fire. Okay, I'm not going to put it bluntly. There is such dire, catastrophic environmental consequences that are going on right now. We could just be a little drop in the bucket. I get that. I completely get that. And with that, I would like to ask our city attorney and our city clerk if there's anything that specifies the council member request must only be made in that part of the agenda.
I would say that that is the appropriate location to have that kind of request. That's the purpose of having the agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Thank you. Just to that last point, I'm actually not sure that I agree with that. I think it's on the agenda, but I think it's not a public comment issue, so I think we can return to that at any time. But look, here's the deal, and I'm going to actually end with a constructive suggestion. And I appreciate this, the sincerity and the passion of my colleagues. I don't want to fail to note, though, that it would be hypocritical, frankly, not to entertain a reconsideration. I mean, what just happened here in the motion? That was a decision this council made not 3.5 years ago, but a few weeks ago. And here we are reversing it. So, much less giving it thoughtful reconsideration. So for us to reconsider something that happened not a few weeks ago, but 3.5 years ago, when so much has happened since then, it's hypocritical to say we can't do that, we shouldn't do that, but it's okay to change our mind on something we did just a few weeks ago. It doesn't make sense to me. Here's my constructive suggestion. There's a lot of question about process, procedure, legality, and we may not like that 2 council members can make a request for action for anything, and it happens. And if that's the case, we can't simply wish that, well, I don't want another study session. We have to follow process and procedure. If the process and procedure is inadequate, then we fine tune it, fine. But the process that's before us now, the policy that's in place right now today, is that when there's a request for action from 2 or more council members, then it happens. And it's important for us, more important than anything else, to follow our own procedure and our own policy. So because there's so much question about process, procedure, legalities, and I don't see an overarching urgency to this matter, I want to suggest that we simply postpone the matter to our next meeting when we can get clarification about process, procedure, and then we can proceed in a thoughtful and cohesive manner. So I would suggest we just simply table this matter to the next meeting.
We have had a
second the
vote.
motion to.
We have had a vote. And Kathleen Kelly, your hand is up, please.
In the form of a substitute motion.
The vote has occurred. The vote has occurred. Kathleen Kelly, please.
As a process person, I'm going to suggest we pull back from all of the process discussion and try to do something that makes sense here. And to my way of thinking, kicking the can down the road and letting this consume a second agenda is not the outcome we should go for. Look, I've given my slant on process. Collegiality is also very, very important to me. And I respect and empathize Councilmember Quintanilla and Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan with your posture in this, especially Councilmember Quintanilla. I can remember trying to find my way as a new member of the council and advance certain discussions. So let me suggest this as a possibility. You've heard the concern that Mayor Hardwick and Councilmember Nastante and I have expressed. We don't want to see this issue come back to a council meeting for a full-blown discussion when we have studied it extensively already and discussed it extensively. We also don't want to see a large amount of staff time consumed in preparing for a study session. Number one, can you propose a scope for a study session that would not burden staff? And can the two of you commit that if the majority of the council don't want to see the issue advanced to a council agenda, that will be the end of it? In other words, if the study session doesn't cause someone in the majority to join you in asking for inclusion of the topic on the agenda after the study session, can you commit to that? Because I don't want to get into a situation where we have a study session and then we have two members who ask for inclusion of this topic on a council agenda when you've got a majority of the council who feel we've studied it extensively and we don't support launch. If the study session doesn't succeed in changing one of our three minds, it would be pointless to bring it back as an action item. So those are the two things I'm asking for to get us to a good outcome that respects everybody's posture. Can you give me a defined scope for the study session that does not overburden staff? And can you commit that the issue of bringing it back as an action item will depend on three people, not two people wanting to bring it back?
Councilmember Quintanilla, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Regardless of the conversation tonight, I know that I will bring this back up for discussion during the council member comments at the next meeting, and I imagine the Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan will second that, and we will move forward to some sort of additional discussion. I find it, I see that the logic in the argument of moving forward with three, but I cannot in good conscience say that's it and then no more. That is not okay with me. I understand the sentiment. I understand the goal of moving forward, but with something this critical, when we don't know the way the rest of our public feels, the way that our residents feel, I don't think that would be the best solution. Yes, I understand it's been discussed at length in the past, but I was not a part of it. That puts me and my ability to make decisions at a disadvantage. That's why I asked for some of this, but I don't think it's still even clear enough. I still think that there's so much historical knowledge that could only be presented during a study session. And again, I think that the idea of go and then call it quits, I think that's not appropriate. I think that the whole reason why I'm here is because I'm not one that's going to take no for an answer until I know that I'm able to serve people the way that they deserve to be served by public officials.
Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so Councilmember Kelly, to your two requests, the scope and the demand on staff time is easy. The scope is to provide council with updated information and empirical data on what occurred since we last addressed this 3.5 years ago. The burden on staff is next to nothing because the demand on staff time will be on DCE, right? And they have staff that will provide those answers, not our staff. So really it will be the DCE show, not the Palm Desert City staff show. As to, can we commit to not moving forward on an up and down vote on opting into DCE? I would suggest we follow the same process that led us to this item being on the agenda. I don't recall being asked. I don't recall three of us voting to discuss reconsideration of DCE before an approved study session. I don't know what process, it's a mystery to me. I have no idea why we're here tonight having this discussion, except that maybe one or two council members are the tail wagging the dog. And that again, procedurally is inappropriate. What should have happened procedurally is this council took a vote on the issue. It passed unanimously. And the next time we talk about DCE should have been at the study session, not tonight. I don't understand, and frankly, I'm very uncomfortable with the process that led to this item being on tonight's agenda. Having said that, that's my commitment to you, that we'll follow no less of an ethical road towards placing this item on the agenda or not, again, following the study session, which again, I'm telling you unequivocally will take place. And I meant to also say there is a request for action on the table from two council members, and per policy, that means we move forward. So I hope staff will clarify that they will plan a study session in the very near future, hopefully, on DC.
The request will be made during council member requests. That's why we have, hold on. That's why we have an agenda. Two people can make a request to put something on an agenda. If a majority says no, then the two people's request goes away. And that's what just occurred. That's just what occurred. And I would suggest, I'm going to mention a few things, because I remember when we had another new council member after we had voted to get rid of plastic bags. A council member came on council and said, I want to revisit this, and put the staff through hoops. They had to go through coming together again and going through it again. And had I been thinking, what I would have said is, please provide that council member with the reams of paper that we have all gone through, so we don't have to put everybody through this. So I will ask the same. Can we please provide all those papers, all that information to Councilmember Quintanilla as she has requested it, so she can study it as well? We've done this. And we can talk, and I'm going to also mention that there is not a council member, or I don't believe there is, on this council who doesn't care about the environment. There isn't. We all do. And we make it in our own ways. We do what is best. Now, I think it's time we moved on. We had a vote. And if you would like to make a request during council member requests, I'm going to suggest that that happen at our next meeting at that point in the agenda. We've taken enough time on this. The majority opinion is clear.
Are you silencing us from continuing the conversation, Madam Mayor?
We are moving on to the agenda. A vote has been taken. A vote has been taken. That puts the end to the agenda item. We have gone well beyond, and we can wait with next agenda. If you want to bring it up again, that's what we'll do. But it's time.
And I would like to request those reams and reams of paper. That's not very environmentally friendly to have that many reams, especially because it's data that should be available to the public as well.
Then you can read it on the computer. It's all available. It's all digitized. So this is fortunate for you.
I do have a point of order.
Yeah, I've been waiting. I think I'm next up. But you know what, Councilmember Kelly, go ahead.
Well, I think, as the city clerk explained it, once we voted to reconsider the decision to hold a study session, we now have to vote a second time on the merits of whether to have a study session. That vote will be determinative. So since we're called upon to do that now, we don't have to postpone it till next time.
You're absolutely right. The city clerk did say that. So we do need a motion to determine whether or not we will have a study session.
I think, and perhaps the city clerk needs to jump in here. I think what he told us is that that motion is automatically on the floor once we decided to reconsider.
Oh, okay, is that accurate?
I'm going to ask the city attorney to correct me if I'm wrong, but the last meeting you all considered the environmental study, and part of that motion was the study session on DCE. Since Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, Councilmember Kelly made the motion, and Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan made the second, that motion passed. In this case, Councilmember Kelly did the motion for reconsideration. That motion passed. So now we are back to whether or not the study session that was part of the last discussion should occur.
Okay, so then the motion does exist. Okay. We have a motion and a second then on whether or not the study session should occur. So, and okay, more discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
I understand the mayor's impatience, but this is an important topic. And I'm sure you want to give it all the thought, conversation, discussion, and analysis that it deserves, because I've heard it purported here tonight that we all care about the environment. And I'm taking you at face value, and I hope that that means we keep an open mind and search for opportunities to protect our environment. I am going to ask for clarification on the record for two things. Number one, I heard earlier that this kind of an agenda item, specifically to reverse the prior decision to have the study session, requires a 4/5 majority vote to be placed on the agenda. I'd like that clarified. And number two, we have a request for action on the table from two council members. If it has to be postponed to the next meeting, fine. But I would like on the record an answer as to whether that cannot be made now because it is not appropriate to do so. So those are my two questions. If I can get clarification either from the city clerk and or legal counsel.
For the clarification regarding 4/5 vote, again, city attorney, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that applies to anything that we're discussing tonight. 4/5 vote would be required to add an item to the agenda.
Right.
I do believe that the agenda item that's on, that's currently on the agenda already covers this discussion.
Okay.
Secondly, could you summarize the second question for me again?
Sure. There has been a request for action with the second council member consenting. Can that be heard at this point?
Sure. So again, city attorney, jump in if I'm wrong, but because the previous decision, the study session was part of the actual motion and not a matter of where it was requested by a council member and seconded. I do believe that this should be voted upon because it was part of an actual motion from the previous meeting.
No, that wasn't my question. Separately from this whole motion, this whole discussion, separately from that, standing alone is a request for action. Forget what it's about. There's a request for action right now from two council members. Can that be considered now?
I find that challenging to say that it's regardless of what the topic is, because if you were to request for an item to be added to a future agenda related to turf rebate in the middle of a DCE discussion, I wouldn't think that that's an appropriate time to have that motion or request. But in this case, since there was a motion to reconsider a previous decision to add a study session, that's what's being discussed right now. And so I'm looking for a motion on whether or not council wants to proceed with a study session.
I understand your dilemma, and I'll just ask it one last time. And again, maybe we need to dig out the written policy that there's a policy with regards to a request for action. Period. It's 2 or more council members and it happens. I mean, I think we would all agree on that.
And I do want to interject just with one thing. When I had asked for the 4/5 vote, that was to put a whole new motion out there in an emergency sort of fashion. So that went away when we didn't do that.
Okay. My understanding of our policy with regards to request for action and that there is no exception written into our policy. Okay. Once a council member makes a request for action and a second council member joins in, then it's a done deal. It happens. Just that simple. If I miss anything, show it to me.
And I understand that, and that's true for any other scenario. But in this scenario, you're debating whether or not to have a study session, but then you're also at the same time saying, well, we'll make a request for a study session. But right now you all are deciding as an agenda item, whether or not to have a study session.
I get it. And it may be an inconvenient truth, and it could be that there's going to be some tweaking required, but right now that's our policy. I understand your answer. I'm going to accept it. I will challenge it. But I understand that's your position right now. And I'm so sorry that we're catching you, off guard and asking you these very difficult questions and interpretations without giving you an opportunity for preparation. So that certainly was not my intent, nor was it my expectation that we would go there tonight. So please accept my apologies for that. Thank you.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. We're swirling all around, and I see the faces of folks getting impatient. So at this time, I would like to ask legal counsel and our city clerk, both esteemed members of this conversation, if it would be appropriate for myself and Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan to have a separate meeting in order to create some of the priorities and what we would like presented in the study session. In the original motion to create a study session, there wasn't enough direction given. We were given some information, but not enough to truly create an idea of where we could move forward. So would it be appropriate to have a conversation between the two of us to then bring forward another request?
Two people can have a meeting about anything they choose, and if they choose to bring it forward, they can. But right now we have a motion and a second. And we need to take a vote, or the motion is on the floor.
So the motion is, do we want to have a study session regarding DCE, correct? Yes. So I make a motion that no, we do not.
Okay, and that is done. So we need a roll call vote.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I actually do think I need a second.
Okay, all right. So was that was your motion?
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi.
Okay, we need real clarity as to what yes means and what no means.
I'm saying no to a study session for DCE.
So, and in that case, a yes vote would mean you do not want to proceed with a study session.
Okay, then yes, I do not want to proceed with the study session.
And I'm looking for a second.
A second.
Roll call vote, Madam Mayor?
Yes, please.
Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
My understanding is the motion is to cancel the study session, so my vote is nay.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi.
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Nay.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2 to cancel the study session.
Thank you. Okay, we will at this point move on to C, which is direction for prospective request for proposals for a rail station feasibility study. And I think that's Mr. Seha.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Give me a second here, I'll bring up my screen. The request this evening is for direction on a rail station feasibility study and direction for a future request for proposals for it. Riverside County Transportation Commission has been working on a plan for several years to bring out passenger rail service from the LA Basin and connect the Coachella Valley to it. They've been working with the federal government for the past couple of years, and they've recently adopted a Tier 1 environmental impact statement on the federal level and an environmental impact report on the state level. That plan was just adopted this past July. They've identified potentially 3 locations for new stations in the Coachella Valley connecting that rail service. One is the existing station in Palm Springs. One is in the East Valley, either for Indio or Coachella, and potentially a 4th one for those 2 cities. But they've also identified one as a mid-valley stop. And they haven't really identified where that location is going to be. We believe it's going to be somewhere between Bob Hope and Washington. And in talking with RCTC and what they're looking at, their next phase is to move into a Tier 2 study where they start looking at site-specific areas for these new stops. They do their own environmental assessment. They look at the local impacts, and they start to design the construction for these stations. So what staff is proposing today in our conversations with RCTC is that it is to the city's benefit to help and aid in that study for RCTC by providing our own feasibility study and analysis. So this is kind of this photo here showing where RCTC is at the moment. They're moving into the next green arrow, and we're hoping to participate through that process by doing this feasibility study. Our request for proposal as outlined is to identify potential locations for a new rail station in Palm Desert, look at the best means to connect to the San Gregorio Rail Service Plan, look at other means for transportation that can connect here. So maybe a multimodal hub that includes even bus service, look at the circulation patterns and access, and really focus around the Cook Street interchange because of the Cal State University campus that's there and the arena that's across the freeway. We also want to look at constraints analysis, look at conceptual design options, look at also land use alternatives, because in talking with RCTC, these are things that would benefit their study as well and put us at the forefront of achieving a new station here. So we're also asking with this, once we have an RFP, we come back to City Council for its approval, that we also have a subcommittee to help us do outreach and some of the planning efforts that would include 2 council members and a planning commissioner. And our goal is to release the RFP later this month, allow for the month of October for responses, and then bring back a contract to City Council for November. This is about a 9 to 12 month study. But again, we're really trying to be proactive in this approach and work with RCTC. So when they're looking at a rail stop, Palm Desert is the location for it. That completes my report, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions of staff, I want to know if there are, I'm looking to see if there are any members of the public who would like to make comments at this time. And I see no one. So let's go to questions for staff. Are there any questions for staff at this time? Okay, I see none. Are there any comments?
This could be very exciting to get a train stop here in Palm Desert. So very exciting information and news.
Okay, and are we asking, so at this time we need to confirm contents to include in a request for proposals and establish an ad hoc subcommittee to serve as a steering committee to work with the potential firms selected with the RFP process. So are there any other questions, any comments regarding this issue? Okay, I would like to serve on that subcommittee. Is there anyone else who would like to?
I will gladly join you, Mayor.
Okay, great. So we have two city council members and then a planning commission member. I think we need to ask them to.
We'll take that back to the next planning commission.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion if there are no questions or comments at this time.
I will make a motion to appoint Mayor Harnick and Councilmember Pantanilla to the subcommittee to study the issue.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Thank you so much. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
All right, Mayor, does the motion also include number 1 in staff recommendation, confirming contents to include a request for proposals?
I would ask the maker of the motion.
Yes, my motion also
you.
includes to confirm contents to include a request for proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Nestandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you so much. We'll now move to D, which is approve a contract amendment with HR Green Pacific in the amount of $121,500 to conduct a feasibility and master plan study for broadband services. And who will be providing that stuff?
I'm back, Mayor.
Okay,
All right, I'll share my screen again. All right, so earlier this afternoon, we had a study session with the City Council on broadband services. We went through kind of staff's analysis of what we've been looking at over the past year. To reiterate a portion of that, this was a goal of City Council in 2019, and it was readopted in 2022 with some more clarity in what the City Council's goal was and what we're ultimately looking to achieve. Since February, when the goal was adopted, we started looking at various federal and state programs. We've been working with the Coachella Valley Association of Governments, looking at what they're doing as well. We've also looked at a few alternatives for broadband service. We've been meeting with, been participating in meetings with the Public Utilities Commission for their local agency technical assistance grants, which we believe we are eligible for and can apply for and would fund our master plan study. We've been working with CVAG as well on a possible regional approach. We've looked at the other cities in the valley like Rancho Mirage and Indio, which have adopted fiber master plans. And we've also looked at the city of Ontario and the Inland Empire, who has a public enterprise. We've been approached by Sci-Fi Networks, which is a private network that has already have a contract now with the city of Cathedral City. And we've also been talking with Spectrum Communications about their future efforts to expand. So for the state of California, they have funding available, and CVAG is a recipient of that funding to build out a middle mile network for the Coachella Valley. That route for that middle mile runs along Interstate 10, and they're also looking at expanding it out to Imperial County and even bringing it along Highway 111. So we've been working with CVAG, looking at a more regional approach. They're also applying for the Public Utilities Commission grant to kind of complement some of the other work that's already been done and even complement our own study. One thing that we do know, though, that there's no service provider identified yet. There needs to be agreements of how different cities tie into that network, and the timing and funding for that is still unknown. So this slide here in green shows the state's middle mile broadband network that would come to the Coachella Valley. And on the next slide is the CV Sync project, which is also providing a fiber connection for the signalization project that CVAG is working on throughout the Coachella Valley. And some of that is in Palm Desert now, primarily on Highway 111, Monterey, and Cook Street, and Portola Avenue. Again, so we looked at other master plans that Indio and Rancho Mirage have done. We also looked at the Public Utility Commission's grant, and their grant could fund our master plan study that would provide our needs assessment or feasibility in the master plan that needs to be done for the planning and design work for a fiber network here in the city. And with HR Green, we were actually under contract with them now. We've been in contract with them since 2021. As part of their proposal then, they did include broadband master planning as part of their service. We opted not to use it then. After looking at some of the options, we think that it's appropriate we amend this contract. We define the project scope, which is part of your staff report, and assign a budget specifically for the broadband master planning and feasibility. And with that, I can answer any questions, and representatives from HR Green are here as well.
I thank you very much. And first, before we get into our discussions and questions, I will go to see if there's any members of the public who would like to comment or ask questions. And I see no public Requests for comments. So let's go to questions from the council, please. Are there any questions? Yes, Councilmember Kelly, please.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that I understand use of terminology. There have been times in our consideration of broadband that we've used the word master plan to describe an approach whereby the city is in essence the provider, as has occurred in Ontario. But as I understand our current use of master plan, what we're looking for is a comparison of all of the alternatives and a roadmap, if you will, as to what Palm Desert can do to have the greatest impact in the context of what CFAG is doing, what the state is doing, an assessment of our alternatives, and in essence, a strategic plan. Am I understanding this correctly?
That is correct.
Cool. I got one right.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. And Councilmember Kelly may have answered my question in her question. But I guess I'm needing clarification about the initial contract with HR Green, which I think was somewhere around $500,000. And I thought, as one of your slides indicated, it's when the city identified as its goal, preparing a broadband fiber master plan. So I'm not understanding, here we are 3 years later with the same objective to spend another 126,000 or whatever it is. So what am I missing here?
A year ago, the city went out to bid, and using a little bit of a different business model, putting together a number of engineering functions, plan review functions, building inspections if we needed it, support, plan review, as well as planning for broadband. And there was a request for qualifications process that went through. HR Green brought all those skills to the table. So we recommended that we do a master contract with them. To date, we've really only exercised the plan review, traffic engineering assistance, development review assistance, and some engineering modeling assistance as well with them. We did not actually pull the trigger on the broadband until we could negotiate this scope that we had pre-qualified them for in that prior process. So I know it's confusing, but we basically wanted firms that could be nimble based upon the projects that the council was considering at the time.
So can we have a confidence level that at the end of this contract, we'll actually have a broadband fiber master plan?
Yes, the idea tonight would be to get your permission to do a task order to initiate that work.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, comments? No. Oh, yes. Councilmember Quintanilla, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I want to commend staff and our partners. This is an incredibly important project, and I look forward to seeing how this will improve our community. And thank you for all the work.
And I see Councilmember Nestandi, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say I would make a motion to approve the contract amendment with Green Pacific in the amount of $121,500 on a feasibility and master plan study for broadband services.
Can we have
second?
Okay, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to that, and that would be for number 2 of the recommendation. And with my work at SCAG and with CVAG on broadband, I would like to be on that subcommittee. So that's part of the subcommittee. We need one, and I see Councilmember Kelly's hand up, waving vigorously.
All right, I'll defer.
Okay, so I would like to offer that friendly amendment that Councilmember Kelly and I serve as the ad hoc committee for the broadband.
Okay, so I'll add to my motion that Mayor Harnick and Councilmember Kelly will serve on the ad hoc committee.
Thank you.
And the reason I volunteered so enthusiastically is that broadband is a key priority of our current regional council president at SCAG, who happens to be our mayor. And since I serve at SCAG and we're working on broadband related issues there, I thought this would be a good approach.
We've got, and we're doing lots of work over there, and I think there may even be grants out there to help us with planning. I have one comment I would like to make before we vote, and that is I want to thank Mr. Jonason and Mr. Price for hanging in there. Good job.
Well, thank you, and we're very happy to assist the city with this very important project. Really exciting to get this going for the city.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi.
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you so much. And after all tonight, are there any additional comments from the city clerk?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I did want to offer a clarifying comment, and please forgive me, council, for bringing up the study session again. But I wanted to note, just so we don't go down a rabbit hole, the motion for reconsideration was not the crux of the decision. Ultimately, because this was on the agenda, the council has had the right to be able to make the motion to council the study session, and ultimately that was passed on a 3-2 vote. So ultimately, whether the motion to reconsider was made or not would have made no impact if the ultimate motion was the same. So I just wanted to clarify that that motion to reconsideration really didn't make any difference, although it will be noted in the minutes.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have no public hearings. And there is no unfinished business, there just couldn't possibly be. So this meeting stands adjourned until, and our next meeting is September 29th, and we will all meet back here. Thank you all very much for all your time and effort.
Be well, everyone.
Meeting adjourned at 7:17.